Special thanks to our promotional partners at the American Philatelic Society.
The APS is the largest stamp collecting organization in the world, supporting collectors of any level worldwide.
For more information about membership and APS services, visit stamps.org.
Hi, I'm Michael Cortese of NobleSpirit in Pittsfield, New Hampshire.
And I'm Charles Epting of H.R. Harmer in New York City.
And this is Conversations with Philatelists.
So, Michael, our guest today is someone we've been emailing with quite a bit the last week or so, which we'll get to more in the interview because I think this is a very exciting development for our podcast. So we'll talk about that. But for starters, Matt Hill is the editor of Stamp Collector magazine, which is a very prominent sort of generalist philatelic publication in the United Kingdom. And we're going to be talking with him today about his journey with the magazine, what it is the magazine includes, because I think that'll be interesting to a lot of our U.S.-based listeners. I say U.S.-based listeners as if we're not both sitting in the U.S. right now. But I think this will be interesting to hear, what it's like to run a magazine in the United Kingdom and sort of compare that. We talked to Wayne Youngblood, who's the editor of a number of U.S. publications. We've talked to other people who have their hand in publishing in the U.S. And I think that'll be a lot of fun to hear about. So Matt Hill's going to be our guest. And again, this is someone we've emailed with a lot, but I don't believe either of us have ever spoken to him, which is I think going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it a lot. He reached out to us, and with an opportunity that we'll discuss later in the episode.
I'm excited we can mention this because this is something that, since you mentioned it to me about a month ago, 3 weeks ago or so, I've been really excited about. Yeah. And again, to finally be able to discuss that with Matt is really great. So what do you say we bring him in?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's here we go. Hi,
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh no, thank you for having me.
Of course. Do you mind just talking a little bit about what it is you do at Stamp Collector Magazine and the All About Stamps website?
Sure. Okay. So I'm the editor and also the associate publisher of Stamp Collector and the website. So to give you a little bit of history, I actually joined as the editor 14 years ago. I think it was actually 14 years ago this week.
Wow.
So you'd think I'd be good at it by now, but so it was originally called Stamp and Coin Mart back then, and it covered coins as well. But since then, it's kind of evolved over time. And probably about 2 or 3 years ago now, we've split the coins out. So we have a different magazine called Coin Collector, and we have Stamp Collector. So obviously, as the editor, it's my job to put it all together every month. Work with contributors, different organisations, societies, organisations like the British Library, who have a really big philatelic collection. I don't know if you guys have seen it in London.
That's on my to-do list.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously the British Library is a big building. You kind of walk in and there's a cafe and people sat everywhere and on their laptops. And all along this wall, there's these frames of philatelic material and people just walk past them. So there's all these treasures right there. It's just a couple of minutes walk from King's Cross Station. So if you ever get to London. So we work with them. We work with the Royal Philatelic Society London, all kinds of organisations really, just to put the magazine together, and that comes out every month.
For an American collector who's maybe not familiar with Stamp Collector, can you explain sort of what the content includes, what level it's aimed at? Because again, it's something that I think it's evidence of how vibrant and strong the British philatelic scene is. That there is this magazine, but can you maybe sort of contextualize it for a U.S. collector a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Obviously we're based in Britain, so we do have a focus on British stamps. So we'll report on the latest stamps from the Royal Mail in every issue. We'll try and cover at least one British subject, whether it's Victorian, Edward VIII, whatever it is. But I'm quite proud of the way we kind of have a wide range of subjects. So if you ask any collector what they collect, I know you guys, was it Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal?
That's my my passion.
Yeah. So if I ask another collector somewhere, they're probably not going to say the same thing. So for me, the trick is trying to cover as many subjects as possible, but make them interesting to people who probably aren't going to collect that, or they might think, oh, well, I may collect that, or I might buy one or two stamps, but probably not going to specialize it in the way that the person writing the article is. So it's getting that wide range, and that kind of reflects the diversity of the hobby, really. So we do cover a lot of US stamps. I have a bit of a soft spot for US stamps. When I first started as editor, that was going to be what I collected. The kind of early pictorials, the Columbia Exposition, that kind of thing. I soon realised they're quite expensive. And I also realised that because it's like a monthly deadlines, we're producing a magazine every month. I will receive an article, I'll edit it, put it in the magazine, we'll get it all ready, and I'll be so enthusiastic, I'm definitely going to collect that subject. That's fantastic. And then the next day, it's something else. So, which I guess is a bit like a lot of people who work within the industry. You don't have time or the means to collect everything. So yeah, for an American collector, I'd say we do cover everything around the world. We often cover US stamps in there as well. And we also have articles and columns that are just generally about philately. So quite recently, we've introduced a column called Adventures of a Stamp Newbie. And that's Laura McKierney. She comes up with a subject and kind of gives a bit of a guide to it, how she's discovered it, but then asks questions. How does this work? Which one should I collect? And then readers come back to her with feedback. So it's kind of that community feel that we really enjoy. So yeah, there's plenty to read, whatever you collect and wherever you are in the world, really.
Yeah, I saw that. I was looking at the All About Stamps website last night, and you guys have over 600 articles on stamp guides specifically, between collecting different time periods, individual issues, or diving into unique, one-of-a-kind items. So was that because you were seeing a large demand for those kind of articles to be published? There were a lot of people looking for specific guides, or was that something that you felt was a void that needed to be filled in the stamp magazine world?
I think the website has definitely evolved. 10 years ago, it would have been a website for the magazine. But now it's a website in its own right. It's something completely separate.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, we cross-promote them and we send people to each platform. But we wanted it to be something completely separate. So yeah, there was a demand for those kind of stamp guides. So we're constantly building those, once a week, every other day kind of thing. We're adding stamp guides to that website.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a different demand for different kind of articles and different subjects. But we try and cover everything and then share that with social media and our email newsletter, which we send out, so that just like reading the magazine, you can kind of dip into different subjects. Even if you're not going to collect them, you can kind of just say, oh, that sounds interesting, and go over to the website and dip into it.
Yeah, it's a helpful tool. I saw you guys also have a section on the website where there's you can find a society in the United Kingdom. There's different links to the different societies and what they do. Do the societies reach out to you to get put on the website, or is that something, the research that you do on your own end to find societies and populate that?
It's a bit of both, really, Michael. It's a lot of the societies do contact us, so they will send us news on a regular basis. Obviously, at the moment, a lot of them are not meeting as much as they did, or they're finding things like Zoom. So that's working well for them. But yeah, they contact us, really, I think. And then one of the big things that I'm working on at the moment, both in the magazine and on the website, is more of a kind of a community feel. So we have a new section in the magazine called Collector's Corner, which is more feedback from readers. It's got that Newbie article in, society news, and we're also doing a lot more competitions, so one-page competitions of philatelic displays. So we're doing that on. Yeah, we did that last year for a festival we ran called the Summer of Stamps. So that was when we were in the right in the midst of the kind of lockdown. We kind of came up with that idea, and that proved just so popular. We couldn't believe how many entries we got to those competitions. So we're doing that again, and that's something that reflects in the magazine as well. And it's also where in the magazine, in this Collector's Corner section, where we're going to put the article that you guys are going to write for me.
Well, I'm sure this is a question and I want to get back to that in a moment, our continued working together. But one thing that I'm sure you're sick of being asked, but I guess it's sort of the $1 million question these days. What are the challenges or the unique rewards of a print publication in the 21st century? Because obviously we're sort of in a weird position where everything is going more digital. We're speaking digitally on Zoom, and that can't be ignored. But at the same time, this hobby is by its very definition tactile and tangible and physical, and it revolves around paper. So I think that, more so than other hobbies, if a magazine is going to survive anywhere, it may as well be within philately. So again, what are some of the challenges, but some of the rewards of having a physical medium in the year 2021?
I think that the challenges probably over, I don't know how many years really. It's just like any other industry. A lot of stuff is moving online, and people have to kind of reinvent themselves. Like the sales of CDs or things like that. It's just completely changed because of the internet. So we've been, as a company, we produce lots of magazines. We've been looking at that for years, and I guess what's happened in the last year with the pandemic it's kicked us 2 or 3 years further down the line really quickly. So obviously the pandemic's horrible, but there has been some kind of benefits. So in terms of the magazine, we've seen subscriptions just go up and up and up. Really kind of March, April time, we went into lockdown in the UK in March, middle of March last year. And from that point onwards, subscriptions, which have always kind of ticked on an upward scale, which is encouraging, but suddenly they've gone through the roof. Our website's gone through the roof, and we also have a digital edition as well, and that's really increasing in numbers, which is, for US collectors, that might be the best way to read the magazine, because they get it straight away, rather than having to wait for the plane to arrive with the copies. So
at this rate, you're probably getting them months after they're published to the US, given our situation with the Post.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, just the pandemic, the way it's affected some of the deliveries to places like Australia as well. I know it's a lot longer than normal. So the digital edition's really taken off as well. So that's some of the kind of that's how we're adapting to the new world, I guess. But for me, it's really reassuring to know that there's definitely a place for a paper magazine. So people are still buying it in the shops. They can still buy it via our website, and people do that. Those sales have gone up as well. And that's really a result of most of the shops being closed because we've been in a lockdown. But the subscriptions, that going up, that's really encouraging. We're trying to develop that so that we can bring in more benefits to subscribers. So they get the magazine, but they'll get things on the website as well. So it becomes more of a kind of a membership. And I think that's kind of where the future of magazines is headed.
Well, this is something that I go to bookstores all the time, and there are very few coin publications on newsstands and no stamp publications whatsoever. Where can people pick up Stamp Collector physically in the UK? Because I think this would be interesting for Americans to hear by comparison.
In the UK?
Right. Where could I go if I didn't want to buy it online? Where could I go buy a copy in person? What sorts of shops would stock it?
Yeah, well, the main one in the UK is WH Smith's, which is a major newsagents. So that's where we sell probably 75% of our copies.
Oh,
and
wow.
then it's independent newsagents, some supermarkets,
It's incredible.
Yeah.
stamp shops, that kind of thing. And I think in terms of the US, I know we do export copies, and I think the majority of those are to Barnes and Noble, if that makes sense. I'm not sure what other stores we do.
It's like the largest
Yeah,
bookstore.
that's amazing that W.H. Smith, again, as an American, this is just proof that the British scene is strong and vibrant, and I think a lot of British collectors approach the hobby differently than American collectors, and we've noticed that with a lot of our British guests.
Yeah.
So so if you obviously you are in the US, so where would you buy a magazine now if you wanted to?
A stamp magazine online.
Yeah, online.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
A non-stamp magazine, Barnes and Noble is basically the big one, or a supermarket. But in terms of stamp magazines on newsstands, it's virtually.
The APS did something for a while where they would drop magazines in different newsstands for people to pick up and get interested that way. But yeah, I don't think we can buy physical.
Not to get into the minutia, but my understanding is that because the APS is a society journal that has new membership information in it, you can't sell that at a newsstand because it has people's information in it. So I think that's a big difference as well. I think an analog would be Lynn's in the US, which is a non-society general interest publication.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just so interesting.
Yeah.
I love learning the differences on both sides of the Atlantic. It's fascinating to me.
So if I can bring it back to probably the third sentence you said quite some time ago, when you talked about the stamp magazine and the coin magazine used to be one, and then they split. So what fueled that decision? Was it more stamp collectors and coin collectors saying we want a magazine just for our own thing, or was it a decision on your end, or?
It was all of those, really. It was a hard decision. It took probably a couple of years for us to kind of make that step. And being honest, I think some of it was a commercial decision as well. Obviously, the magazine has advertising in it, and by having a publication for coins and one for stamps, it kind of felt, I think the advertisers, the stamp dealers and the coin dealers felt like they had a magazine dedicated for them. So that was definitely part of it. But we did have a lot of, I go to a lot of events all over, Stampex and all kinds of stamp fairs, and I'd often ask that question. Most of the readers would say to me, I don't collect coins, but it's interesting. I do read it. It's quite interesting, but it wasn't, it's not part of their hobby. I think the thinking with the magazine initially, before I even joined, was that there is quite a close relationship between the two hobbies. And that, there are, you look at some designs of coins and they're the same design on a stamp. But we wanted to give both subjects more focus. The focus they deserved, really.
Was there any difficulty in changing the way that you presented articles or anything like that? I imagined when you split a magazine that have two vast areas of kind of material to cover, when you split it like that, you either have to make it up with, if you're trying to keep the same page count, you've got to make it up with new articles. So was there any new types of articles that you highlighted that you couldn't highlight before once that happened, or did you cut the size of the magazine for both of them in half?
No, we didn't do that. So the coin one, as it was a completely new magazine, it's slightly smaller in pagination than the stamp one, and it still is. It's doing so well as well, the coin one. So all that kind of worry and a couple of sleepless nights about making that decision, it was definitely the right thing to do. So for stamp, it was really exciting actually to have those extra pages to dedicate. There's just so much to cover in philately. There's so many subjects. So one of the things we introduced was a section called philatelic focus, which is more the kind of perhaps a bit more academic aspect of collecting. So we have Nicola Davies, who looks after the collections at the Royal. She writes for that, and then pieces from the British Library, as I said. So yeah, I mean, the extra pages that were left by the coin moving over that was just brilliant. I can cover a lot more now.
So speaking of covering things, you graciously reached out to us to talk to us about an opportunity where we would get to have a column in the magazine highlighting our previous interviews from a few months before, and I think Charles mostly was going to pick up the writing of that column.
You didn't leave me with much of a choice, Michael. It was no, it's an incredible opportunity, and I think my main takeaway from it, what I love about this idea, is that you talk about how you've got the website, the digital subscriptions, the print publication, all sort of coexisting. And I think it's fun that our podcast, our YouTube videos are obviously very digital, and the fact that they can sort of coexist within this print space as well, I think shows how tied together these seemingly disparate media can be. And I think that's a lot of fun to sort of marry the digital podcast with the printed magazine is an exciting opportunity. Yeah.
It's very exciting to have you on board. And I think what again, it's coming back to that community and having so many different philatelic organizations and just different people all involved in whether it be the website or the magazine. And that's kind of what you guys are doing with these videos. You're bringing to, you're speaking to so many different people. So for our readers to hear about the people you've been speaking to, that's just fantastic. So really looking forward to it.
I think it'll be fun to, hopefully drive our listeners to the magazine and hopefully readers of the magazine will. I think, again, that sort of cross-pollination. Again, this hobby, and when you talk about, the pandemic sort of put you 2 to 3 years ahead of where you would have been otherwise. I think that this, this amalgamation of all these different platforms, whether it's people on Twitter or YouTube, reading a magazine, writing letters to the editor of a magazine, it's fun that it can all coexist. It's not a binary between one or the other. I think this shows that there's room for all of us with what we do, and I think that's really, again, that's what excites me the most about it.
And it shows how sorry, Michael, it shows how vibrant philately is, how stamp collecting is, and I think that's something that's come out over the last few months as well with things like your project and virtual Stampex and the stuff the APS have been doing. It's all been a reaction to not being able to meet in person, but it's also made the world a bit of a smaller place in some ways. So there's a positive there as well.
And it's something that we have talked about multiple times is even after this whole thing, and when we go back to being able to meet in person, that we're looking forward to doing in-person interviews. And I think that the tactile feel of that itself, if you will, will pair quite nicely to because the columns, because it then doesn't only become about the interviews, it becomes about the experience of conducting the interview in person at a show or on location somewhere else, and that's an experience that people watching the videos might not be able to see or to feel, because we'll have sort of kind of a behind the scenes look of that.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think that's something a lot of people have said to me is how the Zoom calls and these kind of virtual events have been really fantastic. But if in the future we can embrace both those and meeting face to face, we shouldn't do one or the other.
No, as soon as we're allowed back into the UK, and as soon as there's an event to go to, well, maybe perhaps the big show next year, we'd love to do something with you in person. It would be fun to have the same conversation, but sitting down, the three of us around a table would be really fantastic as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So can I shifting gears a little bit, can I talk a little bit, or can I have you talk a little bit about how many people you have at the magazine? So it sounds like you've got a number of people writing freelance articles as well, but how many people do you have directly working for the magazine?
We're quite a small team. So there's me. There's other people as well. We have a team of designers. So they work on other magazines as well. But it's interesting how, all the different elements of people. We have a marketeer doing the marketing. We have an ad sales person, Sarah, who speaks to the traders, gets their adverts in the website, email, magazine. So there's probably about 4 or 5 of us that work on the magazine on a full-time basis. And yeah, it's really cool that even though these guys aren't stamp collectors, they've all kind of got bitten by the bug a little bit. So our designer, Nathan, we haven't been in the office for nearly a year now. But in the office, he's got next to his computer, he's got a drawer with some stamp albums in, and he'll often kind of get them out, or he'll see something in the magazine and say, "Matt, can you get me that?" So yeah, it's cool. We're all really enthusiastic about it.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like the core of the content is created by the collectors on the field themselves. So it's really a magazine built by collectors for collectors, which I think is just a terrific initiative. Yeah. So we have regular freelancers that will write in every issue of the magazine, but then we'll have, there may be a collector who just has an exhibit on a particular theme and he wants to write something for that. It may be that a society wants to contribute. So it's really, as you say, it's written by collectors for collectors. That's good. I might write that down. Please do.
Are there any articles or interactions you've had that obviously over the course of your time with the magazine, there's countless words that have been printed, but are there one or two to you that stand out as particularly memorable? Or again, you talk about how certain articles will just jog your interest. Is there anything that stands out from your time with the magazine as just the highlight or the thing that changed the way you look at the hobby? What are the maybe 1 or 2 articles that stand out to you the most when you reflect on, again, all of the millions of words that have been printed?
Yeah, there's so many. I tried to work out the other day how many editors' intros I've written at the front of the magazine. It was a lot, hundreds. There's just so many. One of the big things when I first, probably a year into my role, was going down to St James's Palace in London and seeing the Queen's, the Royal Philatelic Collection. So that was something that kind of really opened my eyes to how kind of prestigious collections can be, and also it was interesting just to see the collection, all the shelves. But right on the top, there was some boxes, and one of them just said, I think it said Anne's First Day Covers. So that was Princess Anne's First Day Cover collection, I presume. So that
just
kind
in
of,
a box up on the shelf.
It was, yeah. I don't know if I should say that. Maybe it should have been. Maybe it was waiting to get sorted. Most of the Queen stuff was much better presented and very securely stored. But that just opened my eyes to kind of how ubiquitous stamp collecting is, how many people do it, even the royal family do it. So that was a really good experience. And that was with the keeper of the Royal Philatelic Collection, Michael Seffi, at that time. I don't know if you know Michael, but he was really nice. Really friendly and helpful.
I think people have an impression of stamp collecting a lot, and then when you tell them that you saw the Queen's collection or you went to a show, I traveled to London for a stamp show, and people are blown away by that. I think there's a sort of common misconception that stamp collecting is insular or old-fashioned or boring, but yeah, when you get invited to something like the Queen's, I'm sure you told non-stamp collectors that, and they were certainly
absolutely.
blown away that you got to see, Queen Elizabeth's stamps.
Yeah, and then I was very lucky to be invited to the opening of the Royal's new premises. That was probably about a year ago now, and the Queen opened them. So I was, stood in the room when she walked in. That was a real amazing experience to be there. I mean, other things. I think with modern stamps as well. One of the memories I have is the Royal Mail issued a set of stamps showing footballers, so soccer stars, I guess.
Soccer players.
Yeah.
Soccer players.
Michael's on your side of that linguistic.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I was actually born in London myself. My
Okay.
mother's side of the family is there. I came over when I was 2 years old, so I didn't get the accent. But
But he still calls it football.
But still call it football. I follow Chelsea pretty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, never mind. It's been nice chatting. Cheers. No, that was a really good memory because they launched the stamps at Wembley Stadium, and most of the people on the stamps, the players were there, so I got to meet.
Oh wow.
Bobby Charlton, Brian Robson. I don't know if you know these names. Dennis Law was amazing. But on that day, Sir Alex Ferguson had just announced that he was leaving Man United. So suddenly what became a press event to launch some stamps became every newspaper sports writer in the country trying to interview these players.
Yeah.
So I remember being sat down with Brian Robson, who was the captain of England for a long time, and wanting to ask him about the stamps, and everyone else around me was from the Times and the Sun, and they just wanted to know about Alex Ferguson. So it was really interesting. I'm not sure if the Royal Mail thought it was a success or not. It kind of got hijacked that way.
Yeah.
And I walked out of Wembley with Jimmy Greaves, who is he was a striker, and he played for Chelsea actually, and he played for Spurs, and I support Spurs, so that was amazing to think. I've come down in my role as a editor of a stamp magazine, and I'm walking out of Wembley with one of my heroes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fantastic.
That's an incredible story.
That's going to make this Michael's favorite conversation.
Most definitely.
That we've ever had. And I apologize that a lot of it's lost on me as a ignorant American.
So you've talked about what your favorite was, but do you know what the most popular article or publications?
It's a good question. Is there something that you've gotten a lot of maybe an unexpected success where you published it just thinking it was a normal run-of-the-mill article, and you heard a lot from people? What has sort of surprised you in terms of the feedback you get?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the British articles we often get feedback on, and that's I guess that's natural because the majority of our readers are British. Something we often get feedback on is when we do articles that are, say, about the hobby more generally. So, for example, just recently in our December issue, we did a big feature on the COVID pandemic and how it's affected collecting. So we spoke to people all around the world, people like Heidi from the APS, some post offices, that kind of thing. And that's when we often get a lot of feedback, because it's different people's views on the hobby, the future of the hobby, what's working, what isn't. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of other articles. There's just been so many. There's just so many.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. There's always something to cover. We did an errors special issue a few years ago, and that got a lot of feedback as well. People sharing the error stamps that they've got in their collection, and I don't know why, but I just love errors.
Yeah.
Especially if there's missing ink, and it just there's one of the, I think in British stamps there's a 60 stamp with the post office tower on it, but there's an era where the tower isn't there. So
it's funny
I love kind of things like that.
These post offices spend so many millions of dollars and so many man hours to get everything perfect, and then we focus on the few times that they screw up.
Yeah, they probably.
I'm sure they love that.
Yeah. Or was it a US stamp where there was a mistake and the postmaster printed millions more? I think.
Yeah, there was in the early 60s, I want to say, Dag Hammarskjöld.
Yes, that's
was
it.
the leader of the United Nations.
That's right.
And they found it was the stamp had a yellow background printed behind him, and somebody found, I think, 1 or 2 panes where the yellow background had been printed inverted, and hoping to not replicate the infamy of the inverted Jenny and other errors, they very quickly flipped the printing plates around and said, let's run off as many of the errors as the real ones to try to, beat the speculative collectors to the punch. So the error is as common as the genuine stamp now, which I think is hilarious. Even today, I don't think they would try something that bold to intentionally misprint millions of postage stamps.
No. But I love errors. That was a really popular one as well. So yeah, there's just so much we cover.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean that's great to get feedback. It's such positive feedback about everything that you're doing that you can't even put a finger on what is the most popular thing.
My last question, it's sort of a two-parter. Did you have any experience with stamp collecting before you came into your role? Or did you have any, did a grandfather or any other family member collect? Did you have any exposure to it as a young person?
Not really. I collected. My sisters and I collected. My dad would often travel around the world with his job. So he'd send us postcards and letters, and we'd collect the stamps that way. So I can remember going to our parents' friends and talking to their kids, and they had all the cancelled to order stamps. They had hundreds, and we thought, what are we doing wrong? We've only got a few pages because that's all Dad sent us. Yeah. So that was a bit of a.
So you had some awareness of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've still got stamp albums upstairs that I. From when I was a kid, so I was well aware of it, but coming into the role wasn't from a philatelic angle; it was from a journalist angle.
So my question to you then is, what has been the most surprising thing that you've learned about stamp collectors or about the hobby? What is there one thing that just jumps out at you as you talk about visiting the Queen's collection. I would imagine that was not something you anticipated when you were
No.
collecting postcards from your father as a child, but is there something about the hobby that stuck out to you, or something maybe you tell to non-stamp collecting friends of yours as a fun? Is there something that was unexpected for you?
I think that the value of some stamps is probably something that leapt out at me when I first started. We have pages in the magazine where we update on the latest auction results. So I remember looking at that first and having to double check all the figures.
Make sure the zeros are in the right place.
Yeah, exactly. And they were. So that immediately leapt out at me, and just how rare some stamps are, and how I've been lucky enough, to see some of those up close. That's definitely been something that left an impression on me. I think when I first started and went to fairs, perhaps I was a little bit apprehensive. I didn't know what to expect, and just how friendly collectors are really, put me at ease, and didn't surprise me. I wasn't expecting them to be anything else, particularly, but it really did. It was so reassuring and nice to know that collectors and traders are all there to kind of help you, and are so positive about it, and want to spread that word about stamp collecting as well. So there's a couple of things I can think of.
This has been fantastic. We've really enjoyed this, and we look forward to a continued relationship. Again, now that we're kicking things off, we we're excited to be a part of the magazine and to do whatever we can. We'll put links in the description, obviously. But really quick, for people, especially in America, who want to read Stamp Collector, what can they do? What's sort of the elevator pitch for them to go subscribe?
Well, as I say, the digital edition is probably the best bet. It's going to be cheaper for you, and you'll get it straight away. In fact, you'll get it probably before it's in the shops, even in the UK, because we can put it live straight away. We do put videos in there as well. So we have Richard Morell, who works at the British Library. He's kindly done a series of videos on a particular stamp or a particular collection. We put those into the digital edition. Sometimes we have image galleries, that kind of thing. So that's a really good way to read the magazine. If you do want to get it print, you can, and we can send that over to you. So all the information is on allaboutstamps.co.uk.
Great.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for
having
taking
me.
the time out. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you have a good day.
We're really looking forward to absolutely everything.
Yeah, it'd be great. Once the lockdown and the world's a little bit saner, if you guys come over to England, it'd be great to meet up and do it in person.
Let's count on it. That would be fantastic.
Definitely looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Speak soon.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
I thought that was really great, and I want to reiterate, I wasn't just saying it because Matt was with us. I am really excited for us to have a column in an actual print magazine. I actually, while we were talking, I hope nobody noticed me glance at my phone, but I texted my girlfriend, Olivia, who lives in the UK, and I was like, you can go to WH Smith and buy a magazine that I'll have a column in. And I thought she'd be a lot more impressed than she was. But I was like, every month you have to go buy this magazine, because this is exciting, again, for us to be able to have a presence in a physical magazine and not simply exist in the digital ether is really cool.
It almost feels like we're returning back to some form of before all of this happened.
I think we should transition, not even have a podcast anymore, just go to writing articles, just go to interviewing people.
Yeah, we can interview people, don't record.
People. Exactly, we interview people, type up the interview, and then publish it in a magazine. This is the future of conversations with philatelists.
Future is 1950.
Speaking of the digital ether, there's something else we have to talk about before we part ways today. We were honored to receive a PTS award, and this hobby went from having like 0 awards ceremonies to having 2 of them. And we are nominated for a Chatty award through the American Philatelic Society. This is for people who participated in their stamp chats over the course of the last year. There are, I think, 7 different categories.
I believe so, yeah.
Which we are nominated in, as well as people like Graham Beck, who has been, people who've been on our show are also nominated.
Right.
So don't.
I think Graham is hosting them as well.
He is hosting them, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
With Heidi from the APS. So don't just vote for us, but definitely do vote for us.
Yeah, and we'll put a link to that below, but definitely check out everybody else who's been nominated.
Absolutely. I'm joking. This is not a call. Vote your conscience.
Yeah.
It's all just you and your vote in the booth when you go to vote. So, vote your conscience. We would love if you voted for us. We would love if you voted for anybody, really, though. So I think more so than voting for us, it's about participating in the hobby, showing the APS that people care about, who's out there. I think showing your support and casting a vote for anybody,
right,
us, is really important.
Right. Yeah. Well, because what's so great is the APS still hosts these the things that people are being awarded for on their YouTube channel. So,
you can go back and watch them after the fact. It's great.
Yeah, you can go back, watch them, decide which one you like the most. You
can go back, watch all of them in all the categories, and then still go vote for us.
No, there's some and a couple other, notably Casey Jo White, her stamp chat on the locals. I watched. I really enjoyed
going through the nominees. There were some that I had watched and some that I had been meaning to watch, and then others that I missed. Maybe after I deleted Facebook, I stopped getting the notifications as frequently, and I was like, "Ooh, I've got to go check that out," because there are a lot of excellent programs that they've hosted in the last year. Again, even if you just scroll through the nominees as a means of inspiration of what to watch,
Exactly.
I think that the Chatty Awards are fantastic. It's a great idea. We are honored to be nominated, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. So the voting for that ends January 31st, and they're announcing on Facebook Live, Heidi and Graham are announcing the winners on February 4th. We'll put links to everything.
We'll put links to,
in
yeah,
the
and if
description.
anything Michael and I said is incorrect, if there's not 7 categories or any, well,
No,
that'll
I think
all
there
be,
are 7 categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
But links will be below, as well as a link to be able to subscribe to Stamp Collector,
Absolutely.
which I urge everyone to do. The fact there's a digital edition, don't have to worry about postage or shipping times or whatnot, I think is great. And you get bonus content like videos.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty.
What more could you want?
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, links to the Chatty Awards and Stamp Collector down below. And yeah, I think that's all we've got. We're on all the usual podcast services, Apple,
Yep.
Google, Spotify. We're on YouTube. We have a website that is philatelypodcast.com. Next week, we're going to read a couple more of the letters we've received. We've gotten some great notes from people, which I love, so we'll get back to that. But in the meantime, Michael, this has been awesome as always. I really enjoyed talking to Matt, and we'll do it again in a couple of days.
Yeah. See you then. Thanks, everybody.